Welcome to Football in the Great Lakes State, episode dos.
Now, wait a second. I'm pretty sure it's Great Lakes State football.
Foosball.
GLSF state ball.
Football.
Whatever it is, we are talking everything football in the beautiful state of Michigan, the Great Lakes State. That is us talking football, episode 2 here, coming back at you with some awesome games from this past weekend. Going to talk about some of the action around the state, Division 1, 2, as well as the state championship games with a guest a little bit later here. But before we get to some of those hot topics, those hard-hitting football topics from the state of Michigan, we have a little bit of an announcement here. We have a new addition. We had last week in episode 1, Brett Johnson joining us as a guest. And after some big time discussions, decision making, and a couple drinks, we all decided that we were going to add Brett as an official co-host. Welcome, Brett Johnson, to Great Lakes State.
Art Johansson.
Happy to be here. Glad I passed initiation last week. It was a tough one. You guys graded me hard.
Yeah, we put him through a series of tests, and he passed with flying colors, and Brett is officially a co-host with Kory and I. So what does this mean? Not really going to change a whole lot, although we do need to change the description in all of the socials and podcast areas. So no longer 2 GLIAC washed up football players, now 3, because Brett did actually play for a year at Grand Valley. So it keeps us true to our GLIAC theme there. But yeah, moving forward, there will be 3 of us. It's going to kind of help Kory out here because I have 2 little babies and Brett has 1. So if one of us is caught up 1 week, Kory won't.
I've got cats.
Kory's over there with 100 cats in his house. So he won't be all alone if one of us gets into a situation where we can't be available. So we're hoping this way too, that we can kind of spread out the content a little bit more in terms of the focus, each one of us having a focus each weekend in terms of what we're watching and paying attention to, so that we have a bit more knowledge and interesting content coming your way when it comes to football in the beautiful state of Michigan. Well, all right. With that, we're going to move on here, continuing on as a threesome. So very excited about that. All right. So what we got up first here, we're going to talk about Division 2 playoffs. Unfortunately, with Albion losing a couple weekends ago, the state of Michigan is out of the D3 playoffs. However, we do have 2 teams that faced off from the GLIAC in the Division 2 playoffs. That was Ferris State and Grand Valley State. Tony Anise and Matt Mitchell going up against each other for the 12th time, the 3rd time that they are playing in the playoffs, where they played each other in the regular season and then turned around, had to play each other again. This was Grand Valley's 21st appearance in the playoffs, Ferris State's 12th. And the last time that they met in the playoffs was 2016. They also met in 2015. So the final score of this game was Ferris State put a pretty big beat down on Grand Valley up in Big Rapids, 54-20. The Bulldogs handled the Lakers pretty much from the get-go. Unfortunately, Kory and Brett were getting wild and weird down in Ann Arbor, and I was at the state final games in Detroit, so none of us were able to watch the game. I did follow the game pretty closely on my phone, so I was always updated on the score. We pay attention pretty closely to the GLIAC. This is the most lopsided score in the series since 2015, when Ferris beat Grand Valley that year 61-24. And to my knowledge, that is the most lopsided series game in that history of that series between them. So it was not a good day for Grand Valley, to say the least. Grand Valley also had their 2 most point totals given up this year by both their games with Ferris State. Ferris State scored 35 on them the first time and then 54. Ferris State Grand Valley had not given up more than 20 something points in any of their other games. They actually averaged giving up only 13.5 points per game in their other 10 games that they played. So Ferris, needless to say, had Grand Valley's number this year. Anise has now won 6 straight games against Grand Valley. He is 10-2 overall in that series. against Matt Mitchell and the Grand Valley State Lakers. Pretty impressive. Tony Anise and the Bulldogs have now gotten 11 wins or more in 7 straight seasons, not including the COVID year. Pretty impressive run. Grand Valley finishes the season 10-2. This is their again 21st playoff appearance. They finished the season number 4 in the coaches poll. Grand Valley has not had a losing season since 1984. Pretty impressive run that they've been on, as much as all three of us kind of agree that we're not the biggest Grand Valley fans, but
Yeah, I would just to chime in to cut this up from fact checking Vince, Jesus Christ, 100 facts later.
I got you with all the trivia.
Please take a fucking deep breath. No, just kind of following the social media aspect of this game because we weren't able to watch it. 33-7 at halftime. Ferris, starter, had 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 passing touchdowns in the first half. Pretty crazy. And like you said, they're 6-0 versus Grand Valley since 16. So I think the turntables have tided, or whatever that corny ass line is from that show I don't even fucking watch. So
talking about The Office, and he goes,
yeah,
my, have the tide tables have turned. Yeah. Michael Scott, baby.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's no longer a Grand Valley doesn't hold the crown of the state anymore. What do you think, Brett?
Oh, cool. They've clearly lost it. It's interesting. They started out the decade and Grand Valley had the longest streak in the series, ripping off 9 games. And Ferris State pulls Tony Anise from Grand Rapids Community College, where he either made it to the national championship or he might have won the national championship. Either way, it was a great hire for Ferris, and Ferris has now won 6 straight, like you've said. The tables have turned, and the good news is Grand Valley is going to the FCS.
He also embezzled a shitload of money from GRCC, but nobody talks about that.
So, but we did share out that information. Has that been confirmed? That move?
I don't think it's been confirmed, but I guess going back to the game, the more impressive thing for me is Ferris State just ripped them. And in the previous 16 quarters, Grand Valley had only allowed 2 touchdowns, and they had shut out teams the previous 11 quarters of touchdowns prior to that game, and Ferris State just couldn't be stopped. The question is, Matt Mitchell, he's been there a while now. He's been there over a decade, and it seems like he doesn't really have much going for him right now.
I was going to say, is he leaving? Isn't he married to the AD's daughter?
Not anymore. There's a new AD. They hired a woman.
Yeah, I always knew that was a big issue
a couple of years ago. But one of the things Matt does have going for him is he does have the calf tat of the head coach. He has a calf tat. I can't remember what it is, but he has a calf tat. So he's got. Is it the Ron Tyner calf tat? Is it a giant comet? I'm pretty sure it's a bird. I asked former GV wideout Dan Hummel today, and he couldn't remember, but he remembers the calf tat. We just couldn't remember what animal it was. But he does have that.
Fun fact of the day, folks.
Grand Valley did only have 7 seniors this year, so they got a lot coming back. They got a young quarterback, but Ferris State mentally has got that team beat down.
Yeah, the only other thing I would add in here is something that's impressive to me and stands out. I kind of mentioned when we previewed this game last week. Kory and Brett wasn't an official co-host yet, so he didn't make a pick for this game. I assume he would have picked Ferris. Kory and I both picked Ferris, and I had mentioned that I felt Ferris was prepping for another deep run like 2018. Here's a fun fact for you. They are averaging more points per game this year than they did in 2018. The 2018 team that went undefeated, only losing by 2 points in the national championship game. That team averaged 39 points per game. This team is averaging 46 points per game.
Wow. That's crazy.
So at 11,
and they're playing. And they play number 3 ranked Northwest Missouri State this week. So that should be a hell of a – and it's the 5th straight time, 5 consecutive years they've met in the fucking NCAA Division II quarterfinals. How crazy is that?
Can we just talk about how cool the D2 playoffs are? That game was awesome. It was played in the snow. It was in Big Rapids.
We didn't even mention the Snow Bowl part of the game.
Unfortunately, it's been even more impressive they scored that many points in the snow.
It was a lot of snow. If you look up pictures and videos on Twitter, it was a lot of snow, way more than what was in East Lansing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They're up in Big Rapids. They're in no man's land. But it's still a top Taggart field. It's a hard place to play, and the people of Big Rapids support that team.
Yep.
But it's always cool when the rivals get to play each other again for a rematch in the playoffs, regardless.
Yeah,
of
I'm excited. Fortunately, I will be able to watch this game, Ferris State, Northwest Missouri State, this coming weekend. I'm very excited to watch a lot of conference championship games, and that will be one that I'll be putting on as well. Northwest Missouri State, like you said, is ranked number 3 in the nation, or did you say number 4? Number 3. Grand Valley was number 4.
Yep.
And Ferris State's number
3.
1. Northwest Missouri State has 1 loss. Their only loss is to Washburn by 1 point. And Washburn is 9-3 and also made the playoffs. Did get beat first round in the playoffs by Harding. And I will say that Northwest Missouri State did not get a bye, so they did have to play. They're in the same region as Ferris, so they did have to play 2 games. They beat Central Washington 50-21. They beat Harding 28-9. Northwest Missouri State in 13 games, 12 games, excuse me, 1 was a forfeit. In 12 games has only given up 121 points. That's 10 points per game.
They've ran 2-1 to pass, which is also a ridiculous stat.
Very impressive. I'll be very excited to watch this game because you have an incredibly unstoppable offense against a very stingy, most likely top-ranked defense in Division II. So Northwest Missouri State is a traditional powerhouse, has won many national championships in Division II, and then Ferris is more of a recent powerhouse. So this will be a fun one. I definitely hard one to pick. Kory, you want to make a pick on that one?
I'm going to go Ferris State. Offense is way too much. I think Northwest Missouri State's only shot is to hold the shit out of the ball and try to just give Ferris like 6 possessions on the game. I think that's the only shot they got.
Brett, who you got?
I'm going Bulldogs.
I'm also going to go Bulldogs. I think, like Kory said, the key to this game would be holding on to the ball, creating some turnovers for Northwest Missouri State, but I think that offense is probably going to be too unstoppable for them. All right, let's move on to some MACtion here. We are going to talk about the Midwest Athletic Conference, our beautiful mid-major conference here in the Midwest that we have 3 universities from the state of Michigan in: Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, Western Michigan. All 3 of them bowl eligible. Eastern at 7-5. Central is 8-4. Western is 7-5. Brett, if you are watching on YouTube, has busted out a classic old Central Michigan jersey there, supporting his Chippewas. But yeah, all 3 teams having very impressive seasons. A couple, I'm going to start us off. They're going to make fun of me, but I'm going to throw some trivia, some stats out here for you. Eastern Michigan, this is their 3rd 7-win season since 2016. 1989 was their last 7-win season before this stretch with Curtis Creighton. The current head coach is doing a hell of a job.
Chris.
Oh, is it Chris Creighton? Oh, I typed it down. Chris Creighton. Thank you. Making me sound like a jackass here.
You just gave him some ethnicity. I loved it.
Chris Creighton is doing a hell of a job over there. Jim Harkema was the last coach, Michigan coaching legend, who actually was the first coach at Grand Valley, was the only other coach at Eastern who has won and coached in bowl games prior to him. Central Michigan, it's their 3rd 8-win season in 5 years. 9 wins would match their 12-2 season with Dan Lefevre back in 2009. Central beat Western and Eastern this year, so they were 2-0 against their 2 Michigan rivals. Western at 7. Yep. Western at 7-5 is looking for their best season since PJ Fleck was there in 2016. If they win one more game, they would have their best season since 2016. They've had 3 7-win seasons in 4 years. So impressive. All 3 Michigan schools in the mid-major conference having a solid season, all with a chance to add to their win total. Anything you guys want to add on the pretty impressive season from all 3 of these teams?
Just real quick, I mean, Central's had a hell of a year. They had a bunch of people on the all-conference list. Nation's leading rusher, 1,700 yards. And shout out Michigan State. He just hit the transfer portal.
Lou Nichols.
Lou Nichols did?
Tuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Lou Nichols. Tuck coming, baby. Keep him in state. Just down the road.
20-minute drive.
I missed that today.
Yeah,
he's an impressive back. 2020 MAC freshman of the year.
He had almost 1,800
boatload of yards this year. He's still going to rack them up in the bowl game.
He led the nation, I think, in total rushing yards, didn't he?
17-10.
He ended up beating out Walker.
142 yards per game, 1,700 yards on the season, which is
only 15 rushing touchdowns, which kind of surprised me. I thought he would have more touchdowns than that.
So how impressive is this this turnaround for Central? I mean, they bring in Jim McElwain, who many don't know. He's part of the Saban coaching tree.
I did not know
and he
that.
was great at Central.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, it was a great hire from Central. He was at Florida for a stint, and then like Florida does, they fire their coach after 3 or 4 years, even though they're winning 10 games. And then he came to Michigan as a wide receivers coach. He was pretty impressive, and then impressive enough that he just continued his way up to Mount Pleasant, where he's been a head coach for a few years now. I think that streak is going to continue. I guess we'll see.
The streak of winning seasons they've been having here?
Yeah, the winning seasons.
Yeah. They have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 winning seasons in 10 years.
And this is going to be
500 or better. So 6.
This is his third 8-win season since he's been there, and not counting last year where they only played 6 games and went 500.
Yeah, if he can win a game, it'd be the most wins since that Dan Lefevre, that magical seat. Man, that was national news when that team with Dan Lefevre was just – that team beat 3 Big Ten schools or 2 Big Ten schools. It beat Michigan State that year.
I remember watching those games with Jimbo Simon.
I went up there.
There.
I went to an Elkhorn State game with him.
48-0.
I was there with you, Brett. I went to that game.
Oh, you were?
It was us and Blake and Nick, I think.
I think I was a freshman in high school. You must have been a sophomore, but
yeah,
I was like going up to Central. That Central Eastern game, they had a raucous crowd of 7,000 people.
Quite the game there. Quite the game. All right, you guys have anything else you want to add on MACtion here with Central, Eastern, and Western?
Your guys' boy from Michigan State is playing in the championship at Ford Field Saturday. Rocky
Lombardi. Yeah, I guess we should finish with. I mean, unfortunately, none of as well as the Michigan schools played this year. They did not make the title game. Weird trivia fact here, though, from the season: Western Michigan has the distinction of being, I believe, the only MAC school who beat both teams in the title game. So Kent State and Northern Illinois are playing for the MAC title. Western beat them both. They pounded Northern last week in Northern Illinois. They beat them 42-21. Kory and I previewed that game in the last episode. I was not anticipating on Northern Illinois' senior night for Western to come in there and beat them so badly. But apparently Rocky Lombardi, I do not believe, played in that game. I think he was out. So regardless, to give up 42 points at home on senior night is pretty rough.
Just a classic case of the Michigan teams beating up on each other.
Yeah.
Yep.
And taking down the best team in the conference.
Kent State -2.5. Brett, who you got?
I'm going Northern Illinois. I think I like the way they play. I mean, Michigan shut them out, but I still think they have some talent. I can't trust the Golden State. What is it? The Golden
Eagles.
Thrashers, Golden Eagles. Yeah.
The Eagles. I'm gonna. Yeah.
They've been bad. They've had a pretty rough pass, but I'm going Northern Illinois.
I'll go Kent State just to be devil's advocate. All right, now we can move on.
I'm taking Northern Illinois. I'm taking Northern. Are we writing these picks down like last time?
Rocky. Yeah, we can. Hold on, let me get a pencil.
So we all got.
I'm waiting for my beer from last
week. Get to that. We'll get to that a little bit later here in the podcast.
I'll give it to you in a couple Fridays.
No, yeah, really, because you guys will all be here at my house. All right, moving on here. We have the Lie Downs next. Kory's favorite team, the beautiful, the wonderful Lie Downs. Kory, I'll let you take it over. You're the hardcore in-house Detroit Lions.
Oh my God. So another loss to another shitty team. Lions drop one to the Bears.
On another field goal. Holy
Lions lose to the Bears 16-14. And to just put this into perspective for you folks, the Lions have not allowed more than 16 points in a game the last 3 weeks and still can't win. That's how shitty we are. And to put the icing on the cake, we've started Jared Goff twice, and his QBR is 29. I could have a better QBR in the fucking NFL than Jared Goff. That's how bad we are.
Kory can't win.
16 points. You can't score. That's 2 touchdowns.
The Lions have scored over 20 points one time all year, and it was the first game of the year against the Niners, and they scored, I think it was 33.
Their other highest point total
Pathetic.
is 19 against the Rams.
Well, we're
really bad.
We're gonna solidify ourselves with the first overall pick.
Who do you take?
Hutchinson.
Who we
Hutcher,
taking?
Thibodeau.
And another fun fact is the Lions have the Rams first round pick this year, and the Rams have been slipping up a little bit, so we could get a mid-teen first round pick too.
So here's my quick say, and then I'll let Vince go. I say you trade number 1 for number 4 or 6 or whatever, something in the top 10, and then you get 2-3 picks in the first round. You're going to get a DN. There's a trillion of them.
Yeah, the Lions would find some way to screw that up more than they'd screw up the pick, though.
Very true. All right, Vince, what else do you have about the Lions? Because they fucking suck, and it just makes me want to shoot myself.
I am not really interested in adding much more. There's not really much to say about this team other than what we've already said. We spent quite a bit of time talking about these guys last weekend, and everything I said last week, I still feel the same. The only thing I was going to add is picking the Lions-Vikings game this weekend. Sunday. Really quick, the tickets should be free because DeAndre Swift and Dalvin Cook will both be out. There'll literally be nobody there. Oh, really?
Adam
it's in
Thielen.
Detroit
yeah.
too, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
They're handing out. You get free popcorn, a beer, and a free ticket to the game if you fucking want to go and watch some dog shit football. So,
Kory, you kick us off here. Who do you got?
Lions get their first win.
A true Lions fan.
17-16.
They finally find a way to win a game by a field goal. I am picking the Vikings. I love my beautiful, awful lie downs, but they're not going to beat the 5-6 Vikings. If they couldn't beat the Bears, dude, at home, they're not beating the Vikings at home.
There's only one quarterback that has a worse QBR than Jared Goff, and it's Justin Fields.
And they lost to Go ahead, Brett. Who you got?
I'm going the Vikings. Seems like the Lions have done nothing but bite their own kneecaps all year.
They're falling down and biting off their own kneecaps. Sorry, Dan Campbell. You're going to have to get that fixed for next year. All right, Kory, write down those picks. We're going to move on here, and we're going to wrap this portion up of the podcast. This is our part 1. Part 1 we'll wrap up here. I'll talk a little bit about Michigan State. Kory and Brett have some exciting and impassioned first-person stories from the Michigan game as they were both there in the big house for an enormous win. We'll wrap up with the college football playoffs. So that was announced recently tonight as we're doing this late on a Tuesday night. We'll talk about that. And then we are going to kind of segue into a second portion of the podcast, a part 2 with Tate Baker from the D Zone. Our buddy Tate will be coming on to recap all 8 division title games from this last weekend, from Friday and Saturday. So we will talk with him about those games. All right. So before we move on from this portion of the podcast, let's get into our top 2 dogs, our big dogs in the state here, Big Ten football. Michigan State, going to go ahead and talk about them here really quick before Kory and Brett suffocate me with their Wolverine talk. Michigan State almost lost a close one at home against Penn State. I will say I was pretty frustrated watching that Penn State game. Michigan State got up 14-0 early, and even in a quite a bit of snow, not as much snow as was up in the Big Rapids for the Ferris State Grand Valley game, but still a decent amount of snow. Even with all that snow, allowed Penn State's rush or a passing attack to immediately tie it up at 14-14. Michigan State goes up 17-14, gives up a pick 6. Fortunately, Penn State's kicker misses the extra point, 20-17. Michigan State goes off for 13, misses an extra point from their walk-on kicker, who's a transfer from Hope College. So it's 30-20. Yeah.
Go Dutch.
It was his first kick of his career at Michigan State, misses the extra point, shanks it. So it's 30-20. They get Penn State backed all the way up to 4th and 24 from their own 9 with like less than 4 minutes left. I go, okay, as bad as their pass defense is, they can hold them to a 20-yard pass, right? Keep everything underneath you. Okay. And I complained last week about them playing 1 high safety looks all the time. They go to a 2 high safety look. They play 4 guys underneath within the range of the sticks, right? They pressure 5 Okay, and they bring they have a spied linebacker on the quarterback. They almost get him down for a sack, and they give up a 25-yard pass on 4th and 24 from Penn State's own 9. They let Penn State then go all the way down the field in a couple minutes and score to make it a 3-point game. Fortunately, Penn State's kicker made the worst onside kick I've ever seen and kicked it right to the best receiver in the Big Ten, Jaden Reed, and we were able to knee the game away. But
old take.
As ugly as the finish was, I'll take a win at the end of the season to finish 10-2. It's only the 9th 10-win season in Michigan State's 120-year history. 6 of those 10-win seasons were by D'Antonio. Only 2 of them came before D'Antonio. 1 of them came by Saban in 1999. So Tucker gets the 9th 10-win season in school history, the first coach at Michigan State to ever do it in his second year. Even D'Antonio, it took him till his 4th season to get to a 10-win season. So pretty excited about that. I also think it's noteworthy that this was their first undefeated home season since 2015, with 6-0 at home. Hadn't done that in 6 years. They return a quarterback who is very likely to set the single season passing touchdown record and break Kirk Cousins' 2011 record. Peyton Thorne is a good game in the bowl game. He's going to break Kirk Cousins' single season record for passing touchdowns. So he'll be back next year. Hopefully Jaden Reed, Jalen Naylor. I don't know if we'll get them both back. I think one of them's a junior. I don't think they're both juniors, but I think one of them is. We have a transfer running back coming in from Wisconsin. Kenneth Walker gets a couple weeks off. So hopefully he's got a good bowl game. We're going to talk about the college football playoffs here, but Michigan State did get ranked at number 11, so they should be guaranteed a New Year's Six bowl. The projections have shown the Fiesta Bowl. I saw some projections saying if Notre Dame didn't get into the playoffs, that MSU might play Notre Dame, which would be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be I could see them making that happen just for money. 2 huge fan bases. I mean, that would be a big time bowl matchup that a lot of people nationally would watch. So I'm happy.
Before we move forward, hold on. Before we move forward, we can't let this slip through the cracks. You just said that Jalen Reed was the best wide receiver in the Big Ten.
Jaden
Reed. You said he was the best wideout in the Big Ten.
He's one of.
Pump the brakes.
You don't think
Ohio State has
one of the best wide receivers?
Ohio State has
3.
So then where do you cut off one of? I mean, I didn't say he was the very best. I said one of the best.
I guess I would say
you wouldn't say he's a top 10 receiver?
I'd say he's probably top 6.
Wouldn't that be one of the best receivers? I mean, he's had a hell of a season.
He has had a good season. I'm not going to take that away from him. I'm just busting your chops.
He's not better. Yeah, I agree with you. He's not better than Ohio State's receiving core. Those 3 dudes over there, unbelievable. They have the 3 of the best in the nation. I mean,
yeah,
they do.
But Jaden Reed has had quite a season as well.
You forgot to mention that Melvin Tucker. Is that his full name, Melvin? Did I just make that up?
Pretty sure it's just Melvin.
It's Melbourne.
Melbourne Tucker won Big Ten Coach of the Year, and he probably is up for National Coach of the Year.
Oh, you're right. It is Melvin.
Fucker.
His full name, I just Googled it. His full name is Melvin. You're right.
Melvin
he won
Tucker.
Big Ten Coach of the Year. Obviously, there were some people who talked about Harbaugh getting it because Harbaugh had a pretty impressive turnaround from last year. I think Tucker just gets the nod for it being his third year ever as a head coach and second year at Michigan State after kind of their fall from grace and D'Antonio's last couple of years. And, one of the worst seasons in a while last year. That was abysmal.
They were picked last in the Big Ten East this year. And
I think that's the biggest thing is Michigan was picked to do well. Michigan State was not picked to do well.
Well, Michigan
them at like 4 to 6 wins.
Michigan was picked to be better than State, and State also beat Michigan. So,
yeah, I give it to Tucker, man. It's a pretty impressive second season. But I think Harbaugh would, as we mentioned before we started recording, Harbaugh could very well be up for National Coach of the Year honors if he finishes strong here. He's got a couple games opportunities left here to really make a name for himself this season.
Yeah. Brett, I'll let you kick off our time in Ann Arbor.
Oh boy, here we go.
I guess before I even talk about the time in Ann Arbor, I just want to touch on the job that Jim Harbaugh has done. It is honestly probably one of the most, what Mel Tucker did is impressive, but Mel also brought in a lot of new bodies, a lot of experienced bodies onto the team via transfer portal, where Jim Harbaugh, he's essentially got all the same players from last year with some freshmen that came in. They got a transfer defensive tackle that came in. They got a transfer wide receiver that came in, but neither one of them are really any of their big playmakers. I think it's so impressive the job he's done this year. And you could argue it is better than Mel with what he was working with. I mean, he cleaned out his coaching staff. He went back to the drawing board, changed his entire philosophy, looked in the mirror and decided he needed to lose 50 pounds. And
literally,
he did.
I know.
Yeah.
And he's changed everything. He's a fiery guy on the sideline. He's talking shit to people in the post-game interviews. He's back to his old self. He's got his confidence and his swagger back. And I just couldn't be happier with the players on Michigan. And I'm so happy that they were able to go out the way they did. But they still have one more to play. I hope that they're not going to have a hangover game this week against Iowa, because Iowa's a team that likes to muck it up. If you recall, 2016, Michigan was a 24-point favorite going into Iowa City, and they lost the game on a last-second field goal. I was at that game. It was terrible. I don't think I talked to the people I went to that game until the next morning. It was a silent car ride home. But I guess to recap on the atmosphere in Ann Arbor, it was incredible. We rolled into Ann Arbor, my wife and I.
Yeah, I guess we should mention, though, before you keep going, just for the people listening, Brett and Kory both went with their wives to the big house this weekend, and they were there. They celebrated on the field. Pretty cool experience. I'll let Brett continue, but just want to put that out there that these two guys had a hell of a weekend.
It was, I mean, Kory could probably vouch for it too. I'm rolling up to Ann Arbor early in the morning. The place was popping. College game day was there. Fox Big Noon kickoff was there. I mean, when we rolled in at 8:00, it was bumping. There's people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Tailgating, everyone having a blast. And I was even surprised there was a lot of shit talking going on with the Buckeye fans. I mean, normally I've been to a lot of Michigan, Ohio State games, and the Buckeyes are in town. Michigan just tends to put their tail between their legs and just kind of bow down to the Buckeye fans. But it was an awesome atmosphere. It was a great game. The first half was really close. It honestly was. I think it was 14-13 going into halftime.
Yep.
And I don't know if you saw the video. I know Kirk Herbstreit tweeted it, but Michigan walking into that locker room at halftime, they were pumped up. They're flicking off the Buckeyes. The Buckeye fans are walking down, or the Buckeye players are walking up the tunnel, and the cops and the referees were holding Michigan back. There probably would have been a little tussle in the tunnel had they not been in between the two teams. But it was I've been to a lot of Michigan games. I think the Under the Lights game was the best game I've been to in person as far as like a back and forth game where Michigan came back and won, but just a thorough ass whooping that Michigan put on Ohio State was just so impressive. To send Michigan to the Big Ten championship, to ruin the Buckeyes playoff hopes, to end the streak. There was so much at stake for Michigan, and it was just a great game to be a part of.
I completely second that. The minute you pulled up, it was just lines of traffic. I was actually shocked by how many Buckeye fans were there, not only tailgating, but in the stadium. It felt like it was like almost 50-50. But
Michigan
it
fans
was
sold their tickets last August.
Probably. But no, it was bumping. It was standing from the minute the first, I mean, literally, I don't think I ever sat down. I think I just stood since I walked in. And then waving that yellow ass little stringy thing that we got and screaming like a 12-year-old girl at the ice cream truck. No, it was unbelievable. And like Brett said, for the first time in probably my remembrance, except for when Ohio State was down, we beat them all game long. I mean, it just felt like we were just winning. And even at halftime, it was 14-13. It was close. Like coming out of halftime, you're like, dude, we got this. We've answered everything. Just some stats. Michigan was 6 of 7 in the red zone for touchdowns, which is correct. Or no, 6. Did we score 6 touchdowns? Because Haskins had 5. Yeah,
and then AJ Henning had one.
Yeah,
and then the one we didn't get was Cade threw a pick on our second drive.
Yeah,
Michigan had the opportunity to go up 14-zip.
6 of 7 in the red zone, which
line, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6 of 7 in the red zone, which is one thing that I said had to happen. And then lastly, we got Ohio State to third down 18 times in the game, which is crazy.
They weren't 3rd and 1s or 3rd and 2s. They were 3rd and long.
4 to 5, yeah. So I think Michigan did. I mean, I don't know what Jim Harbaugh's plan was, but whatever it was, he executed the shit out of it, and it was all we needed.
Cade Cade didn't have an incompletion in the whole entire second half. And I don't think Michigan's out there down in the second half either.
Yeah, Cade was 14 to 20, 70% completion rate for the game. So,
nonetheless, go Wolverines. Got the Hawkeyes this week.
I'll be there, and I'll be screaming like a 12-year-old girl there too. So
I'm pretty sure, Kory, we didn't get
on.
into it. Kory, you got 2 extra tickets, right?
Not extra tickets. I just have no tickets. I ended up selling the other one. So.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
So who are you going with?
My uncle Brett. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say by yourself now.
I was telling Kory, I went to Michigan State, obviously beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship game back in 2015. I got to go to that game. Honestly, one of my favorite experiences in my life in terms of sporting events that I've gotten to go to. And our tickets were in the end zone that the LJ Scott, they put together like legitimately a 10-minute drive, unbelievable drive all the way down the field, 3-4 yard plays a pop. And, most people remember LJ Scott, freshman running back, got stopped and then rolled and turned and just extra effort reached out and scored one of the only touchdowns of the game. Each team only scored 2 touchdowns. A bunch of field goals got scored and beat Iowa by 3 points. Talking about, you mentioned stingy teams earlier. That game was 16-13. So heck of an experience. I hope, I'm not a Michigan fan, but I hope for you guys and all my Michigan friends out there that you guys get to experience a fun win. So
I hope
Michigan's first time in Indy. Hopefully it's a fun experience.
I'll be blacking out in Indy if they don't win. So go ahead, Brett.
I think you will either way.
I hope our running backs don't fall off the cliff like LJ Scott did after that season.
Yeah, that is true. He really didn't do much after that, unfortunately. I'm surprised you guys didn't mention that this is Harbaugh, his 4th 10-win season, 7 years. Before he got there, Michigan only had 4 10-win seasons in the previous 13. So, and 3 of them came in the early 2000s before Lloyd Carr took off. So, people who have talked about Harbaugh getting fired, we've talked about, I don't know why. I mean, he's doing a good job, right? I know the biggest criticism is not being MSU and Ohio State. This is his first time being Ohio State. Obviously, the biggest win of his career. Michigan State, he struggled with a bit more. But, getting to a Big Ten championship, he has a chance to go to college football playoff. It seems like he's only getting better. So last year was a hiccup.
Can you guarantee me you could find somebody better than Jim Harbaugh?
Probably
and you
not.
can't. So
absolutely
let's not get
not.
rid of him.
Especially if Harbaugh seems pretty content there. He's taking pay cuts and giving money away. So why would you want to get rid of him? The guy seems completely happy with being in Ann Arbor.
I was just curious. I was looking at Brian Kelly today and his career with Notre Dame. It took him until like the 6th or 7th season to get his first 10-win season. And then he just started rattling off. I think he went like 10-win, 11-win, 10-win. And then this year they got 11 wins.
A very interesting
and it was kind of the same run with Dabo Swinney. I mean, I think you just got to be patient with these guys. And oftentimes, I know I mentioned it last week, college football organizations and fans, they just don't have the patience. They want to win and they want to win now. And that's really not the case. I think the more patient you are, the better it'll pay off. It's kind of like Nebraska. You're telling me Nebraska can get someone better than Scott Frost? I mean, they got Scott Frost for a deal. All the way that the coaches are getting paid this year, Nebraska would have had a new coach, hit the reset button. They probably would have had to pay someone 2 or 3 times as much money, where Scott Frost has proven he's capable of winning games. They were in every single game this year. He's
also proven that he can coach the greatest 3-win team of all time.
College football's trendy.
Scott Frost always out-hits everybody.
College football is so trendy, and everybody who knows college football watches it. Think about any other industry, because the NFL doesn't even do this shit, that you don't interview for a job. You don't interview for a college coaching job. They literally just like shoot you an email and say, "Hey,
your resume is on film. I mean, it's out there on.
I know, but like, think about
game you coach is your interview.
Yeah,
they interview in the NFL.
Well, it's a little different in the NFL.
In major college football, though, literally, it's like, "Hey, we'll give you 10 years, $100 million.
The thing is,
are you coming or no?" It's just crazy.
The thing is, in the NFL, if you're a good coach and a good NFL team, you're not going to leave. In the college ranks, if you're a good coach in college, there's always a better job in college somewhere else.
I think the big difference too is with recruiting, right? And building a culture and a program. Whereas in the NFL, you have the best of the best of the best players, no matter what. We talked about this.
If you watch the Lions,
well, we talked about this with the Lions. I think their biggest problem is their ownership, as we mentioned with the Fords. I think it starts at the top. I think if you don't have good good organization at the top, good ownership, good leadership up there, that it trickles down. Whereas in the college ranks, you don't have necessarily the best of the best, right? It's spread out. It's spread a lot more thin. Alabama and Ohio State, Clemson, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, they tend to get the best of the best because they're the big names. Michigan, right? But a team like maybe Oregon State or Iowa State or like I don't know. What's another major Boston College, Illinois. Yeah. They're major Division I programs that don't get those big names because not as many kids want to go there, right? So
church.
I think that's part of it. All right. Do you guys have anything else you want to add? Otherwise, I think we're going to wrap up this portion here with college football playoffs. I think we've kind of already talked about it already, but I already mentioned Michigan State finished number 11, so they're pretty likely to lock in a New Year's Six bowl. Good for them. Michigan came in at number 2. My 2 in-house Michigan fans over here. When was the last time Michigan was ranked number 2 in the nation in any poll?
2016, when they lost to, I think it was unranked Iowa.
At that time, they were undefeated. They hadn't lost a game. They were 9-0. Yeah. They were 9-0. They lost 3 of their final 4 games. I would think so. That year they were 9-0, and then they lost 3 of their final 4 games. So I think I remember that. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys noticed what the college football playoff committee did, but they paired us with Alabama and put Alabama at 3. I don't think you can put Alabama in there at 3 after even playing a close game this week. I think you have to get Cincinnati to 3.
But no,
I am praying that Alabama loses and they're out. So
you're telling me that Cincinnati is better than Bama? No. But like you said, they're not going to stay at 3. They're either going to go up to 2, depending on how the Big Ten championship plays out. If Michigan waxes Iowa and Georgia loses, Michigan will go to 1, I think, potentially. Because Michigan's loss arguably was to a better team, because Alabama lost to Texas A&M. What would really screw things up, especially
Texas A&M 6-6 though, or they're gonna finish 500, 7-5 maybe.
Yeah, I think they're 7-5. But 7-5, what would really screw some things up is if Michigan were to lose to Iowa, Big Ten would not be in the playoff anymore, and that could potentially bump Michigan State out of a New Year's Six bowl because Michigan and Ohio State would get the New Year's Six bids. So that's another thing to watch.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true.
What if everybody loses other than Georgia?
There could be some chaos this week. I guess we'll see what happens. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We are going to move on here. We are bringing on our guest, Tate Baker. He will be recapping. Big old Tate Baker from the D Zone. Our friends of the D Zone cover everything high school football in the state of Michigan. So we will be bringing him on here to talk about the state title games from this weekend. So we'll be back with you shortly. Great Lakes State football.